Cheers, guys. A bit of a morning coffee. It is, you know what? It's not important what day it is. It's a random day. Woke up this morning, going through the comment section, got an idea which I thought would be a little fun. Just a completely random video on virtual reality news behind the scenes. I know I've had this question come up a lot. For the most part, everything I do in the videos is very, very structured. And it has to be structured without me going insane and spending even more time than I already do creating these videos. So I thought it'd be fun to give you guys just a little behind the scenes on how a typical daily virtual reality news video is put together. So with that said, guys, let's get started and start off with, well, the basics. Basically, guys, all my stories are going to start off as a Microsoft Word file. Every single day, ad nauseum, starts off as a Word file. Here is a blank template, and I've already got it prepped for today's news, which will be October 11th, 2017. Each news story has a few different categories that I'll use. The first three, headline, source, and timeline, those get copy and pasted into the description of a given day's VR news. That becomes the timestamp, the source, and the headline that I use, which helps me with search engine optimization because all the keywords are already embedded into the headline. So I don't have to do anything really fancy in the description other than just copy and paste it into that. So this is the blank template. Well, what does it look like when it's all finished? Well, let's look at yesterday's. This is a completely finished news day. Typically what I will do, I used to do these freestyle, completely just start to finish. The advantage was super easy to edit. You're basically just worried about where the video starts and where it ends. And unless it's really bad, you do some editing. And in the beginning, I used to do none. So I would just do multiple takes until I got it right. And that was sometimes hours worth of takes that, of course, people never see. Then I realized, wow, that's all time I could spend editing. So it morphed over time. Now, typically, there's 4 ways I'll do a story. And one of the viewers to the channel, Kim, he had some commentary on this day's video. This is October 10th here, where he said, I prefer where I see you on camera to you being off screen. And I honestly do try to find a balance, guys. Whereas in the start, it was pretty much me completely on screen. Now it boils down to 4 types of news stories. It's actually 3 main types. This will be where I'm talking to the camera. You see me, and I've got the little picture-in-picture window on the top left of the screen with either an image or some text. That's broadcast or pip style. Then there's freestyle ad-libbed, where there's no little pip window. It's just me yapping into the camera. And then, of course, there's the off-screen stuff. So on any given day, I try to find a balance. The exceptions to that are if it's a busy day and I just don't have the time for editing. It is a lot easier to edit off-screen footage because you're really just dealing with your audio tracks than it is you on-screen, because you got to be worried about how it looks when you're, doing a lot of jump takes, for example. So I will typically try to spread this on a typical show. Yesterday was an example where I didn't have the time I normally have, and the end result is I'm pretty much off-screen the entire show. I try to end a typical show with me doing pip on the outro of my last story, because it's a perfect lead-in to me doing the see you guys tomorrow, and you see the like, subscribe, all that crap in the little pip window. It just flows better that way. How do I decide which of these I do? Well, if I am confident with the material, I know it's not going to require multiple takes, and there's not a lot of facts in the story. In other words, the Ozo one from Nokia, I could have freestyle ad-libbed that entire story because there's not a lot of facts. It was 60,000 when it launched. They cut it down to 45,000 US. Then it went down to 25,000 just in September. You can see I still remembered the whole story. And then it shuttered, well, now in October. That would be one I could completely freestyle and ad-lib. Some stories I'll start off, I'll do a bit of an intro to the story. Maybe it's an anecdote, or when I go editorial style, like the Value Village, me being poor one. Typically, if I've got the time, I'll do that pip style. So I'll do the intro. Here would be an example. One of my favorite pastimes. Then with the personal computers, a lot of that got migrated to the screen and I stopped playing D&D as often. Whatever, I'm just riffing it here. But that would be me doing the pip stuff. So I'm looking at the screen, I'm talking, then I cut away, and that's all the bulleted stuff. So Nokia has decided to shutter their Ozo brand effective today. The product launched back in November of 2015, etc. Those are all the things that I'm going to talk and say off screen. And then final say is the camera coming back to me, i.e. the outro. So just my 2 cents on this story. My feelings about teleportation as a locomotion mechanic are as follows. Blah, 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 blah. All right? That's basically the structure. So every story is going to be a combination on that. It's either going to be just the bulleted, me off screen completely, easiest to edit. It's going to be picture in picture where I do my talking to you, I'm looking at you. Then I cut away and I come back. Sometimes I'll just do the bulleted where it's off camera and then I come back. And again, that's how I would typically end a show. Me coming back so it flows into the like, comment, subscribe video a lot better. It's already me on camera, not going back and forth a lot. So if we go back to the video for October 10th, for example, you're going to see as we look through, well, this was a day we know I didn't do any yapping on screen. It was pretty much all off screen. And as you can see, it's all just bulleted stuff. All bulleted. And there's a big one there for that. Then there's the Microsoft one. But let's just open up one from a couple of days previous. Let's do October 8th. Is this one? Bad example. Another bad example, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. And there's definitely episodes where I do that. So the reason I do all of this in Microsoft Word is simply that it saves me editing after I do the filming. So I'll make my script like this and I never read what's here verbatim. Or I do, but I've already typed it to be paraphrased. And the reason is, one thing that you learn in acting, and I've done a lot of acting and onstage work, and I'm by no means a pro, but to sound natural, like you're chatting with buddies and not sound like you're scripted, never read something word to word when you're starting out, or just as a matter of procedure. If you see something like this first line is, Sony started out as a company, telecommunications company. Well, you can already tell from me reading it, I've stumbled. That's not what I said in the actual show. I use it as notes. How that might actually read when I get to it is, Sony got its start as a company doing primarily telecommunications, just dabbling with audio equipment before they migrated into other areas like video, blah, blah. You can hear already that sounds like I'm just chatting with you, and it doesn't sound near as scripted as if I was to actually read this out word for word. So just a little tip, if you don't want to sound scripted, that's the best way to do it. Make bulleted notes for yourself, but then paraphrase them as you're reading. Obviously, you got to be a strong reader for that, but it really, really helps make it sound unscripted, which is, in my opinion, key. So back to the different types. If we go here, this is the one that I had just finished. So here's my template. So I go to the different websites. I will go to VR Focus, Upload VR, Road to VR, VentureBeat, Ars Technica, you name it. There's a ton of sites. I'll go to Reddit. I'll go to Twitter. I'll go to just news feeds in general. Find the stories, populate this with all the information so that the final thing looks like this. Then it's time to film. And filming is basically, facing the camera. I've got one monitor, and I'll probably take some pictures to kind of embed them so you can see. I've got one monitor that's just underneath my camera. So if I do have to read something, it looks like I'm still looking at you. It maintains that illusion because my eyes aren't obviously glancing down or to the left or to the right. And like I said, there's probably a picture up showing you that right now. I also try to use a lot of lighting, and what I'm going to do a better job of, I finally figured out the audio, but it can still be improved by simply putting up foam, a lot of foam in this room. That's one of the next steps. Then it's software. Well, what do I use to edit? All right, so I talked about how I use Microsoft Word. I talked about my camera, and like I said, there was a picture of that, and how I put the monitor right underneath that so I can read the script. And then I will film and scroll down with my left hand as I'm going through the content. Then it's off. Once I've finished filming, it's dumping all of this stuff into Adobe Premiere. I have the subscription, so I'm using Adobe Premiere 2017, which is the latest version of the software. If I scroll out, this is yesterday's show. So we're taking a look at yesterday's show and all the components that make up the show. So let's play it real quick. Cheers, guys. Epics 911, welcome to the Tuesday, October 10th, 2017 edition of VR News. All right, so that's my intro. That's me facing the camera. The Nokia story, each of them I try to do as a segment that I block off with my wallpaper, which is my news wallpaper. So if we zoom into the first story, the Nokia Ozo, for example, you can see here there's my wallpaper. So if I hide the rest, all you see is my wallpaper, full screen. And that's when I use clips that aren't 1080p. Now what I do is I won't stretch 500 pixel by 500 pixel to fill 1080p because it looks crappy. I'll just show it at native resolution where possible. And then anything outside of that frame, you're going to see my logo. But let's go back to that. So we're going to unblock everything so we see everything. So I've got it dissolving in. That's what that little effect is there. And watch the picture dissolve in. So not too surprising. You see how that kind of looks like it dissolves in? That is how I start the story. And then I use what are called keyframes. So each individual picture that I want to do a special effect, when I highlight it like this, in the top left, you can see the keyframes area, and I use primarily scale and positioning. So for this one, I've got the picture zoomed in, and then as you go through the timeline, it gradually zooms out till it reaches this point. Well, when you're actually playing that, and here, let's just mute my voice so you can see the effect. Notice how it gradually zooms. That's how you create that effect. If I want to insert something, like I talked about the 60,000, well, that's this window here. It also has keyframes. This first one slides the graphic in, and then this last one here dissolves it out. So let's see what that looks like. There's the text, it slides in. As you get to the end of that, and we're going to help it along, you'll watch it dissolve out. The text, you see that? The picture will continue, and then every picture, I've done that. This one, I don't use scale keyframes, I use positioning. So I'm scrolling from right to left. And sometimes it's vice versa, sometimes it's up, down, you get the picture. Okay. I like this form of editing. It's not that time consuming and it looks a lot better than just having a static picture. One thing I learned, and this is all thanks to you guys in your comments, is to not make people dizzy in the process. So you don't want to do crazy zoom effect after zoom effect because that just makes people want to hurl. Not a smart idea. So my audio track is this one. I typically will bring that into Adobe Audition. And what I will do, I'll just show you guys real quick here. Let's take this. I'll go Edit, Audition, Sequence. I'll say OK. Yes to the overwrite. That automatically launches Adobe Audition. And within Adobe Audition, I can do the filters and stuff to clean the audio further. And typically the one that I use is the one that removes the background humming, the pops, all that kind of stuff. So you can see it. I'll highlight the sections that I want to work with, like this one, go to dialogue, and I've got it all preset. The one that I basically use is reduce noise. I'll just check it here like this, and you can see this little hourglass right by my hand. It's cleaning that segment up with the reduction of noise filter. Okay, at the end of that, I export it back into the video. We're just going to fast paste this. And then I'll replace the original with that. So the whole thing goes, you can see as I'm going along here, all the different graphics, using those different effects. There's a scroll, there's the parts, and then finally my outro. Last night I mentioned was an example of where I didn't do a lot of on-screen stuff. And the reason I didn't do a lot of on-screen stuff is I didn't have the time to edit. And like I said, anything where you're off-screen is way easier to edit. But here's a little secret in terms of how it's done. Watch when I hide the graphics. I'm still there. Let's unmute. Shut down today. You had to have a feeling. And I'm very obviously reading the script. Those are those. Here, I'll mute that. What I'm reading there are those bulleted points. And because I know I'm off screen, or I'm going to be off screen when I'm editing, I'm not purposely doing eye contact with the camera. I'm just focusing on reading it and paraphrasing it in a way that I try to mimic sounds more natural than scripted. But the illusion is just all these graphics are layered over top of that in production when I'm actually doing the editing. So you can see it's not as easy as just filming it. And this by far, guys, is an example of the easiest day. I've got this process down now where this editing takes me on average about 2 to 3 hours per episode. But it's getting faster all the time. I can do most of these in my sleep. Had I not done one like this, had I done the picture-in-picture where you see me more, that requires a lot more editing and it can double the time. Instead of 2 hours, I'm spending 4 hours. So you can imagine on a day where you don't have a lot of time, suddenly you got a whole second work shift. So I made a decision like last night, and this is directed right at you, Kim, to do it off screen just for time, no other reason. But normally I try to find a balance of the 4 stories. I try to have 1 or 2 with me facing the camera at some point, either picture-in-picture, broadcaster style, or no picture-in-picture, just me talking to the camera. So you saw Microsoft Word get used. I also use Adobe Photoshop. Anytime I'm making adjustments to pictures, that gets done in Photoshop. If I'm recording the screen, and you're going to see a little weird effect here because it's going to record itself recording itself. Oh, yeah, there it goes. This is OBS. I'm using that right now to record desktop stuff. So if I'm recording things or want to show things on a desktop, I use OBS. So it's Microsoft Word, Adobe Premiere, Adobe Audition, Photoshop, OBS, and finally, let's talk about audio, which I've gotten a lot better at. I'm still not where I want to be, but I'm a lot better. And how I do the audio portions is I record using the camera. The 4K camera captures the audio, but I do double entry. I'll also capture the audio with Audacity. And I'll import that, sync it up. It's really quick using Premiere to sync it up. Believe it, there was a day I didn't know how to do that. And it used to take me so freaking long to sync audio up, when now it's one click of a button. Literally, it's that quick. So Audacity is my main source. I find it does a better job than the camera of capturing the audio. And then I'll sync it up, and then I'll primarily use this as the one that ends up going into Audition. But it's also a fail-safe. If one fails, all that work I did filming doesn't go to waste. I've got a backup. Well, when it's actually all ready, the export, and I'll typically do an export when I've gone through, done at least 2 viewings myself where I can't see an issue. And then the final piece of the puzzle is to export it. And I'll go to Export, Media. Let's slide this window over so you can see it. It's 4K. I'll use the YouTube 4K preset. I rename it to whatever the news one is. I hit Save. I then hit the Export button down here. And it generally takes, with my i7, and let's just say an average video length of about 8 minutes, it takes about 20 to 25 minutes to export it. Then when it's exported, I view it again prior to uploading it to YouTube. Well, one last little kind of piece of, it's not really secret, it's just a tip if you're also a YouTube content creator. When I upload them now, I no longer go directly to public. I will upload it to unlisted but monetized. Serves 2 purposes. A, it notifies me immediately if the video is copyright flagged for any reason, and it doesn't inconvenience you guys, because I used to do this earlier on, when you're viewing it and then all of a sudden the video disappears, which I know for me, when I look at other people's videos, it sucks. It's a pain in the arse because you're busy watching it. You maybe had to go somewhere, you go back, the video's gone. Well, if you upload it first to unlisted, all their catch you filters still get applied. Monetization is applied, demonetization, copyright, content ID, all of that. Depending on how much time I have, I'll let it sit there and percolate for about 30 minutes to an hour, because while the content ID is pretty much immediate, that demonetization flag isn't. And I know some YouTubers now are waiting a full day. I don't wait that long. Like I said, 30 minutes to an hour. If it passes that, I flag it to public. And, well, then how I type the description is, I'll go back to the source document. The section in my description that is headline sources is just copying, pasting all of these. And I populate the timeline, by the way, while I'm doing the editing. Each section that's finished, I note down the times. So I copy and paste, go down here, copy and paste. It's just always the top 3 lines: sources, time, headline. Then I do a quick typing summary, because the more you can mention it, the better you do search engine ranking wise. And that's basically it. That is what takes me on the daily. This video yesterday took me just about 3 hours. A video with a lot more editing, a daily one, can take me 4 to 7 hours, 4 to 8 hours even. So basically a full second workday editing videos. Something that requires a lot, and here this might be fun for you guys to just see, is the A to Z one. You guys can see that. Let's see if I've got the old one. Aria here. Might be this one. Let's just see. Not really, but yeah, this isn't the final version. There's one and it looks double more complicated. Well, this one takes probably, I would say, to make one of these, it's about 20 to 40 hours. So there you guys go. So don't let anybody tell you that YouTube isn't a job. It absolutely is a job. It's a hobby in the way I view it. But for the people that do it full time, hell yeah, it's a job. There's a lot of work. And that's just this aspect. Then there's the comment section. You want to read the comments. You want to be able to interact with people. You then have to have some kind of a social media presence. And that's probably my biggest deficiency. And it's probably what's cost me the most growth. And that is not being consistent with Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that other stuff, Reddits. That's all stuff that the more you use it, the better off your channel will do. Like it'll do better and it saves you time in the long run. But hey, not everybody practices what they preach. I'm a perfect example of that, but I'm trying to get better. Well, hope you guys found that informative, a little behind the scenes info on YouTube creation. Guys, have a fantastic one. As always, cheers.